Good evening, all of you blackhearts, misfits, outcasts, and otherwise broken things. In 2002, Japanese director Takashi Shimizu unleashed a vision upon the world of a modern haunted house tale that is atmospheric, emotional, creepy, and propelled by the masterful performance of young Takako Fuji as Kayako, a murdered housewife who is so angry and vengeful that she haunts and kills anybody who enters her home. So masterful was this vision of horror that when it was released to Western audiences in 2003, it was almost immediately optioned by Sony Pictures for an American remake in which horror legend Sam Raimi would bring back Shimizu to direct a version of this starring American actors and actresses for Western audiences. So great is this film that there is a sound, you know what I'm talking about, that to this day sends shivers down my spine. A sound which, by the way, is supposed to emulate the sound of a box cutter. Opening and closing, regardless of what you may have believed it to be. To this day, I hear the sound and I get chills. It's become iconic. It spawned sequels that still keep this franchise running. It was so good that the American version, for all of its failings, still managed to be terrifying and spawn 2 sequels of its own. Unfortunately, the 2020 version of this film is none of these things. It is many things, but it is not scary, it is not atmospheric, it is not creepy. It does not have an iconic ghost performance. It does not have an iconic noise. It tries, sure, but it falls flatter than Bill Pullman when he jumped out of that balcony in the 2004 American version. This film is boring. It's dull. It manages to make 90 minutes feel like more than 2 hours. I'll be honest, it's been a long time since I felt myself dozing off in a movie theater. And that's not to say it's entirely a failure. It does a couple of things that I really respect it for. The first is the examination of what do the presence of these ghosts, these spirits in this house, mean for other characters in the film who are wondering about the afterlife and wondering about what it means for being reunited with their loved ones after they pass. It has a conversation within it about assisted suicide and the right to death. Things that I am proponents of, things that I think we should have more of a conversation about in actual society that you never see tackled in Western cinemas unless it's under the lens of these things being horrifying. It is propelled by actress Andrea Riseborough and Demian Bashir, which, forgive me if I butcher that name, are the stars as two detectives investigating the happenings in this house and their experiences and what they go through. And the plot here is an interesting take on the original, which relied on, for some reason, just some random caregiver who happened to wander in the house once, managing to undertake a massive investigation. And it's kind of the biggest flaw of the original is the plot. This manages to fix that for the most part. The plot is at least coherent and understandable in this version. But that's not to say it's good. While the acting is good, it just, again, falls flat. And it's shooting for the moon and missing horribly. And it forgets to be what it should be, which is a tragedy, because there was a lot of potential here. There was a lot of hope. I was wanting to see this be good. I wanted it to succeed. It was my hope that we would launch the new decade, the first film of the 2020s, the first major picture to be released in 2020. Could have been a good horror movie. And instead it's this. It's so bad that in its final moments, as credits began to roll over the final shot of the film, I sat there in an almost stunned silence, listening to the conversation around me as my fellow theater goers had nothing to say but how bad this film was. It's regrettable. I think that there's a lot of potential and hope for Nicholas Pesky, is how I'm going to assume you say his name. I'm interested to see what he does next. I hope he learns from his mistakes in this film, because he's definitely got something there that I think he can build on in the future. But ultimately, this ain't it, son. If you were hoping to go see this film, I recommend waiting. Give it mid-February. It'll be on streaming. It'll probably be on Shudder. It might be on Netflix. And you can see it then. In the meantime, spend your money on something good. Go watch the original if you haven't. Watch the American original if you haven't. I'm a firm believer in voting with your dollars, and this is one to vote against. Let me know in the comments below. Did you see this film? Are you gonna see this film? Are you excited? Were you hopeful for it? What did you think of the original? Just make sure, keep your conversations civil, and above all, keep it black, but not too black.